Hello and welcome to another episode of Learning to Live in the Present Moment. My name is Ted Robinson and I'm your host today. I'm going to ask you a series of questions in a moment. I'm going to read them to you actually and ask you to contemplate them. It's all about why are we here? What are we doing here? What's the purpose of our life? What's the purpose of your life? And I'm going to ask you these questions so that you can actually contemplate them. Think about them. Ask yourself the questions and see if you come up with different answers. There are no specific answers to any of these questions. They're all unique to you and me. Everybody has their own answers to the purpose of life. And then I'll give you some information after that I think may help you as you go through life. Here are the questions. What is the purpose of life and why are we here? What's the most important thing for us to know about life? Why do we strive to stay alive? If we stay alive a long time, but we're not happy being alive, what's the point? Do we have a purpose to living? If so, is it for us? Or is someone else supposed to benefit from us being alive? Why do we think about the meaning of life at all? Do other species think about any of this? Are they happier if they don't? What's this life all about anyway? The reason for asking these questions right up front is because I want you to start thinking about what life is about, what your life is about. That's what I'm doing with this show, by the way. I do this show so that I can think about my life. What's my life all about? Why am I here? What am I doing? Is it to do this show alone? Or is it something much more? I think it's much more, of course. But this show actually plays an integral part in my purpose in life. It's part of my purpose to actually ask these questions of myself and present them to you so we can share this experience. Many people haven't taken the time to think these questions yet, so I'm just taking the opportunity myself to ask the questions of myself and share them with you. Perhaps they'll resonate with you, perhaps they won't. Perhaps you won't care and you'll turn the dial, it's okay. But if there is a purpose to life, what is it for you? What's your purpose? Now, some people say life is just here to live it, to enjoy your life. Go through life and enjoy it. Other people say kindness and compassion. Still others say, be here now. What's that mean? You know, you hear, be in the present moment. I talk about it a lot. That's what the name of this show is all about. Learning to live in the present moment. What does it mean? And why does it matter? Well, it does matter, in my view, because so many people struggle with so many things all the time, right? If somebody loses their job, oh my God, we're not going to be able to afford our bills. Everything is going to go to hell in a handbasket. And where am I going to be? Where will my family be? We're all going to die and be homeless, or be homeless and die. But the fact of the matter is, life has a certain way of working its way out, working things out for us, right? And yet we worry a lot. Do you worry a lot? Do you find that you worry a lot? I find a lot of people that come to me are worrying a lot. And the ones that aren't worrying about the future, you know what they're doing? They're thinking about the past. And when we're thinking about either the past or the future, we're always, and this is an absolute, always in our ego mind, our conscious mind. We're consciously thinking about the past and future, and one more little fill-up here is judgment. So past, future, and judgment, you know you're in your ego mind. And when you're in your ego mind, you're in an illusion of life. It's not life itself, it's just a perception. It's what you think life is, but it's not what life is. It's what your mind recalls of the past. It's what your mind anticipates in the future. It's how your mind judges things even now, so you get lost in your mind. And through time immemorial, the various religions and philosophers and everything else have come to the conclusion that the mind is Maya, M-A-Y-A, which means a dream. And actually, even in our own society, we have a song that Wayne Dyer uses at the conclusion of one of his speeches, where he says, and we've all sung this little song, it says, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream, merrily, 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 life is but a dream. And that's true, if you're in your mind. Now, when the only place that you will not be in your dream is here and now. Everything else is an illusion. Everything else is a dream. Now, when I first heard that, I said, get out of here. I'm not listening to that at all. But over the years, I've come around to it because my mind has been questioning all these things all this time. And finally, I've come around to accept that my mind is dreaming constantly. It thinks what I'm doing, what I'm having happen in my life is real. But it's always, what I've discovered, it's always based upon my foundational conditioning, my perception of life. I was looking at Billy Joel and his 1985, I think it was, trip to, he did a tour in Russia. He had never been to Russia. He didn't know what to expect, but he wanted to go to Russia. It was a very important time in Russia and USSR history because Gorbachev was the prime minister at the time, or the premier, or what do they call him, the chairman. And he actually wanted to break down the USSR, the Soviet Union of states, and make it Russia and let the rest go their way. That's when the wall came down in West Berlin, in between West and East Berlin. And Billy Joel went there and played. They didn't know who Billy Joel was. They didn't know a whole lot about rock and roll. And Billy Joel was a big rock and roller at the time. And he went in there and he played, and the people loved it. What I got from watching the commentary on the whole tour was that the Russians are just like Americans. Slight differences, of course. But everybody is the same. We're all just people. Now, they get conditioned to believe that we're the bad guys. We get conditioned to believe that they're the bad guys. Who are the bad guys? Nobody. We're just conditioned to believe these things. And why would we be conditioned? Because the politicians want to keep their positions. They want to keep their power. And their power comes from fear. Remember what has happened ever since 9/11? We got these orange and reds and yellow stages. We're in high alert, we're in medium alert, but we're always in alert. Why? So we can spend billions and trillions of dollars on our military. Because if there was nothing to be on alert from, all these terrorists are out there to kill us. If there was none of that, we'd say, why do you want to spend so much money on military? Why don't we spend more on life and food and education and making a better life for the citizens? Instead of building guns and going out and having, colonies in every country of the world, as many as we can get. You see, fear drives people to protect. But what if there was nothing to protect ourselves from? What if it was just a small band of terrorists that did all these things? And they kept getting the media to make all these things into big things. So we would be in fear. What if it's all just a dream? And by the way, they have their own dream. They have the dream that America is going to come in and take over their country. And I guess they weren't completely wrong in Iraq and Afghanistan. Iraq wasn't even involved in 9/11. And yet we are all involved in this dream. And that's the reason I'm asking these questions. What is the purpose of life? The answer is really very simple. It's quite clear to me what the true answer is. And I'll be back in just a moment to share that with you. So don't go away. be right back. Welcome back. So have you thought about what the true purpose of life is? What the true purpose of your life is? Well, I can tell you this. Since I told you I was going to tell you the purpose of life, the purpose of life is to live it and to be present as much as you can be. That doesn't mean you're going to be present every minute of every day. It's not possible. You'd be a little like this off in a corner someplace. That's not my suggestion. My suggestion is that you take a few moments every few minutes or every hour at the very least for presence. Take a look at the plant. New growth. Softer than the old growth. Sounds so trite, doesn't it? But it's anything but trite. It is called learning to live in the present moment. That's what this show is called. And that's what that is. Now, does that mean we're all going to go around and go like this all the time? No. But you can take a deep breath and feel your breath filling up your chest. Feel your breath bringing life into you. Exercise and feel the breath. Walk down the street and look at the trees. Listen to the birds. Look at the grass. Just take a few moments for real life, for real living. And then go back to whatever your mind and the dream is all about. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with a dream, except that we don't know it's a dream most of the time. That's what the purpose of life is, to learn that it's all a dream that we've been doing. We relate everything through our conscious brain, our ego mind, and we think it's real. And it's not. What's real is when you take that breath. One of the things that I do is I take 3 steps, just 3 steps, as I'm walking between place to place. I go to courtrooms a lot. I'm a defense attorney, so I walk from this courtroom to the next room, and I'm hurrying, running, trying to get it all done in the morning. And sometimes I just take and become aware, and I go, oh, and I take 3 slow, deliberate steps. And I'm present for 3 seconds. That's all it takes. The idea is to not be lost in the dream of our ego mind any longer, and to really truly be here, if only for a few seconds. That's enough to ground you in presence. It's enough to bring you back to reality and not believing in the dream so much. You know, I was in court today, and I was in court the other day, yesterday, and I saw somebody screaming at somebody else, and then I saw 2 attorneys screaming at each other, and they were both fighting for their point, their issue. Now, they were lost, quite frankly. They could have accomplished the same thing, but their egos get involved. I've got to win my point. I've got to compete. I've got to win. That's the ego. She did this to me. He did that. It's always the ego. When does it stop? Is there never any conflict in presence? Really, there's not. Because when you're present, you start to realize we're all one. Russians, Americans, Vietnamese, Chinese, Filipinos, Colombians, we're all one human race. We have different eye color. We have different shapes to our eyes or our hair color or our skin color. But we're all one human race. And when you start to realize that, and if you look at the bigger picture, that all of this, the whole world and all of those people are comprised of God, because God is omnipresent. God means everywhere. God is everywhere. and is everything. If you realize that, every one of those different people are God, just like you are. If you want to argue with God, go ahead. But the idea here is to just become bigger than this little scope that we walk around with. We walk around with blinders on. And what we really need to do is walk with the watcher, watching everything. The watcher is like a second set of eyes that's up here. And like right behind the eyes, but a little bit higher than the head and a little bit back. It watches everything. It sees the ego as it goes through its little egoistic ploys, its techniques for getting over, its lies and deceits, its puffed upness. It sees all that. And as soon as it does, and the ego realizes it's being seen, the ego will pull it back, right back and, no, I'm fine, everything's great. So by introducing the watcher into your life, you'll start to see the dream that the ego projects upon your life. You'll start to see your life more realistically. You'll start to see life as it truly is. And, I heard a wonderful question of Eckhart Tolle by a reporter. And he says, but don't you ever get angry? He says, no, everything is just as it is. He says, what if somebody cuts you off in traffic? He says, it's just somebody going ahead of me. He says, it's like a burst of wind in my face. Do I get angry at the wind? It just is. I thought it was a wonderful comment because it really says a lot. The only reason we get angry when somebody cuts us off is because they took our space or they put us in jeopardy. They almost killed me. And all of a sudden the ego comes up and says, I'm not dying for that, idiot. It's none of that. It's the burst of air in your face, the wind. Don't curse the wind. It's just the wind. And that's pretty clear to us. But when that person who's the other driver does it, we have to curse him, we have to yell, we have to chase him, throw the finger at him, something. And none of that's necessary. If you just change your perspective, change the dream in which you've been living all this time. And the way in which you do that is by introducing the watcher. Have that part of your mind that can see everything that you're doing. Watch more consciously. Be aware of when your ego's involved. Be aware the first time somebody cuts you off and you go, ah! You go, oh, that was like the wind. I'm not going to curse the wind. I'm not going to curse them. They know not what they do. So as a result, what happens when you start to do this? When you change how you relate to your world? You derive more peace from it because that person cutting you off can't change your reality for the worse anymore. It's just the wind. It's no more important than the wind. It can't take me out of who I am and the peace that I am within. That's what life is. Now, all these other experiences, he said, she did, those are all life experiences for you to grow from, to learn from. They're all things that you can actually consider, ponder, and perhaps change with time. As you see things more clearly, more rationally, more reasonably, your soul begins to expand. It begins to learn. And life becomes more enjoyable. As you introduce presence into that life, by just being present for a few moments, again, just look at a plant. Look at the sky. Look at the birds or the squirrels. Or look at somebody else. Look at yourself in a mirror. Just take it in. No judgment. No thought about what's happening here. Why am I doing this? This is like what I did, a little different than what I did before. It might be different than what I do in the future. None of that. Just do it. That's what life is. That's the purpose of life. Life is to live it. Life is to be here now, fully, completely without all this mental garbage being insinuated into your life. All the conditioning that we've had put upon us, we live by the conditioning. It's time to put an end to that. It's time to live here now. Be here now, fully and completely present. And watch how your life changes so much. I had a young gentleman walk in to see me a couple days ago, and today I happened to see him. And he's one of these guys looking at the watch. He's got to be here, got to be there, got to do this, I have all these things to do. And he's losing his life. He just is overwhelmed, and he can't figure out why. So we talked about presence. We did a little EFT and hypnosis and stuff. And today I said, how you doing? It's a couple days later. He says, I drove today to work in my car, and I really enjoyed it. I saw everything as I was driving. I didn't think about a thing, and I felt so much lighter and so much better. And that's what you can do with just a little bit of presence. Start to see as you drive down the road, instead of, oh my God, my phone's ringing. I have to call someone. I have a text. Let it all go. Just be driving down the road. Keep your eyes open. Watch for traffic conditions or anything else, but see it all. And that's presence too. This is presence right now. You can be silent, still, present. You can do all these things. Everything that is presence is available to you at all times. Now, I will tell you, because many people ask me, well, how do you know if you're present? It's very simple. If you're thinking, you're not present. You cannot be present and have your mind thinking away. I'm going to do this, I got to do that. Oh boy, remember what he said? That's not thinking. When you're pondering, you're not present. When you're angry about something that's happened in the past, you're not present. When you're worried or stressed, you're not present. So, when you stop thinking, when you quiet your mind, you're present. And then suddenly, you become awesomely aware of everything around you. And I mean awesomely because it's like the child lying in its crib, and it's got a little mobile above it, and it's looking, and a face comes in and goes, ah! Or, ooh. Well, that's awesome to that child, that infant. That's how life can be again. When you no longer have the words in your mouth, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, then you're getting closer to presence. Every moment is unique if you allow it to be. If you stop remembering the past, anticipating the future, judging everything, every moment is unique and you are present. And that's the idea. That's the crux of it all. You are present in that moment. I'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back. So all of this talk leads back to the same place every time. It's the name of the show, Learning to Live in the Present Moment. So I'll be talking to you in the future about exercise and about learning to eat properly and living longer and the purpose of living longer. And the purpose is ultimately to be present. Because whatever we don't work out in this lifetime, we're going to have to be working out in another lifetime. Because whatever we don't work out, we're coming back to resolve. It's just that simple. But in the meanwhile, we can learn to live now right here and now, a lot more easily than most people realize. And that's the idea of learning to live in the present moment. Because once you are present for the first time, just like this, here, it's this simple, watch. That's it. As soon as you do that, as soon as you're just present, everything grows from that point. As soon as you're present, you start to realize and recognize the ego when it's up to something, when it's pursuing or presenting or projecting its image of life, its dream of life, its illusion of life onto you. And suddenly you can break out of it, and that's when the watcher comes out. The watcher is really just an observer. It's the person or part of you that's within you that can just sort of objectively watch and not get caught up in the dream. When you're present, that's available. But then when you go out of presence and back into the ego, there's still a part of you that's standing up here watching the whole thing. But only when you choose to do that. So it's a choice. You can be the watcher or you can be the ego. Or you can be a little of each. You can actually watch the ego at times. And when the ego realizes it's being watched, it goes, uh-oh, and pulls back. And that's how you get back to presence, by watching the ego. As soon as it's aware that it's being watched, it knows it's up to no good many times. It knows it's an illusion it's presenting or projecting on your life. And so when the watcher comes out and says, hey, what are you doing there? Oh, okay, I'm out. It walks away. It doesn't want any part of that. It doesn't want to be found out. And as soon as it happens, you will realize, look at that, I did it. I quieted the mind just like that by watching it. And as soon as you watch it, it's gone. That's the idea. So again, we have much more to talk about in future weeks, but for now, that's about it for now. That's all the time allows. But I'll be back next week, same time, same place, as you and I, as we learn to live in the present moment together. See you next time.